Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours. Well, hello, I'm Craig Sweeney, and welcome to In Real Time, where we're having real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change. And I'm joined by two co-hosts today. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Jen Yarbrough. I'm one of our associate pastors here, helping out with administration and prayer and restoration ministries. Good stuff, fun stuff.
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
And my name is Tim Layfield, and I am an associate pastor as well. I oversee the online campus and teaching pastor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Yep.
And I was telling Tim earlier, I am crushing on his Ultra watch. Someday I'm going to grow up and have one.
There it is.
So it's going to happen. Are you a better man because you're wearing it?
I am a better man because my wife bought it for me,
Yes.
and I'm wearing it.
Yes.
I'm still learning it.
And it's changed your life.
Yep, so far it's been awesome.
It's good. It's good. Those are all reasons that I need to get mine.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. Well, what are we talking about today?
We
Got a
are
great
talking
topic.
about something that is not for the faint of heart.
It is not.
That is a
And it's
great
a mouthful, too.
Yeah. Okay, get ready.
Yep.
Future planning, uncertainty, budgets, and staffing.
Oh, wow. Wow. And we had to cram all of that in there because they all are connected. They are all connected. If you're going to talk about future planning, that's a budget item. Uncertainty, yeah, that affects budgets and staffing and future planning.
Yeah.
And of course, staffing, budgets, blah, blah, blah.
Yep,
So
moves together.
Yeah. So what we want to do today, this is certainly not going to be an exhaustive course on all of those things. But what I do know is that there's some really basic questions out there that are being asked by a lot of us senior leads now, and I know staff as well, as conversations are happening. And honestly, people are trying to figure out what is most important. What are the data points? And so in this conversation, which we have been having because we're putting together our 23 budget as we speak, and we're really far into that process, we're going to let you in on some conversations that we've been having, and Tim is smiling and almost laughing right now because you've been involved in
all of that,
knee deep in those conversations.
Yes.
And has it been difficult?
It is difficult.
It is difficult.
But necessary.
But necessary.
Yeah.
So, Jen, you've also been knee deep in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to know that God's going to get you through. And
That's right.
No matter where you're at, God loves the church
Yeah.
and he wants us to survive.
That's right.
So
And
just
thrive.
know you
He
can-
does.
Yep.
Yeah. You
That's
can
right.
trust him to
We can.
help you navigate through all this big mess.
Right. So as we're talking about it, I thought this is a great episode for In Real Time, because in real time, we're doing future planning, uncertainty, budgets, and staffing all at the same time.
That's right.
All right. So with that in mind, some basics about planning in uncertainty. So here's the bottom line is 23 is coming. 2023 is coming regardless. So decisions have to be made. Mm-hmm. The current budgets that we have are running out. So people are looking and saying, hey, Craig, what are we going to do? So decisions have to be made. So what are some of those things when we're thinking about planning and uncertainty that we know, right? No-brainers. We just got to get them out there. Right. What were some basics here?
Well, the first thing is we need to identify that certainty, that's a myth.
Yeah.
Certainty is a myth.
Yeah. Are you sure about that? Because
I am
before
100%.
COVID, wasn't it all certain? Wasn't it all certain?
I think we thought it was.
Yeah.
But looking
Felt
back,
more certain.
Felt more certain.
We get comfortable in it, so we think it's certain. We think it's kind of is what it is. But certainty is a myth, and the further, out from this pandemic, this next season, the greater temptation it is to believe that there's certainty. It's like we use the word norm or the new norm. Mm-hmm. Well, what we found out just recently, even this year, it's never been certain. We've kind of changed thoughts and how and why 2 or 3 different times.
Right.
Because certainty is a myth.
Yeah.
And so if you can wrap your mind around that, I think you'll be better off.
Yeah.
And it'll help you in the long run.
Even if certainty was real, which we know it wasn't before COVID, the reality is It's gone.
It's gone.
And so it doesn't matter if it was or wasn't. I'm not living there.
Right now.
Are you living 3 years ago? I'm not living 3 years ago.
I don't even remember.
I'm living
3
right
years
now.
ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about that. So certainty is a myth, but we still have to make some decisions. So one thing that I think is really helpful for me this go around in budgets and staffing and uncertainty and future planning, because everybody wants to know, hey, can we have that event next year? Mm-hmm. And we've been saying no to a lot of things in the last 2.5 years. And so we're starting to say yes to more of those kind of things. So we are doing future planning. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the bottom line is for me is I have been tentative to make these decisions. We talked about it on other episodes. One of the things that I want to bring forward and learn from the pandemic is that I was taking too long to make decisions, and it was not helping the team. And so does it help you as a staff when I linger too long on decisions and don't make them in timely manners? Is that helpful to you?
No,
not at all.
It starts to get frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, I know your heart. I know your goal is to always do what's best for Heights Church. But what happens is you're now in this limbo stage a little bit too long, and it starts to feel even more unstable in a way. So for you to make a quicker decision, it's like, okay, now I know what to do.
Yeah.
Now I know what my next step is supposed to be and when I'm supposed to make it.
Yeah, yeah. And what's helpful to me is because I know that was all true, but it still felt like, but what if I make the wrong decision?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that kept me from making a decision. But I've finally been able to come to the grips with the fact that the decisions that are before us, they're not moral decisions. This isn't whether I'm going to lie or cheat.
Right.
This is a decision has to be made. Are we going to do the event or aren't we?
Yeah.
Can I plan for us to have Restoration Ministries in 2023 or not?
Right.
Those are the simple decisions. Are we going to serve coffee or are we going to put in a solar system to help fund, our electricity? Or what are we going to do? These are all decisions we can make. They're not moral decisions. We just have to make a decision.
Yeah.
So I need to make the best decision I know how to make with what I have. So what I think is going to be helpful today is just coming to grips with what do I know? So that's kind of the process we've been walking through.
Right.
And it has been actually really helpful to me as I know we've been putting this budget together. And we are getting very close. We are not there yet, but we're close.
Yeah.
And this is how we got there.
Right.
And I feel really good about how we've gotten there. So there's a helpful phrase that we like to use around here. And honestly, I don't know where it came. I think I came up with it. I'm going to take credit right now because I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the phrase. So
First
I think
I
I'm going to
heard
take
it,
credit of it.
it's from you.
I'm taking
So-
credit.
There you
Okay.
go.
Well, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm
It's all
going to do
you.
it.
Run
It's
with
me.
it.
It's all me. It's all me. That's what we do around here. If it's a good thing, I take credit for it. So what is that helpful phrase?
It is. I don't know everything, but I know some things.
Yeah.
And I love that. I was just thinking when you were talking earlier about how sometimes you don't know what's right or wrong. The only way you're going to have a result at all is just to take that step and find out.
Yeah.
Is it right or wrong? I mean, that's for all of us, even our personal lives. I have to make decisions like that sometimes.
Yeah.
So you go back to, well, this is what I don't know over here. I have no clue, but what are the things I know over here? I want to make as smart of a decision as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the things that I do know?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think for a senior lead, I want to know as much of that picture as I possibly can before I would actually make a decision. But the difficulty, pre-COVID, I could say that I saw more of the picture at that time, and it was a little easier, which is why I found myself hesitating in the pandemic. And even now, I can still feel that resistance. Believe me, it feels like a rope around my waist at times, like pulling on me to not make the decision. But I know it's the wrong thing. That pull is it's not towards a good thing. And so I've got to lean in and I've got to make a decision. But I'm recognizing I'm seeing less of the whole picture. So I never saw the whole, but I'm seeing less of what I even saw. But I still got to make a decision. I still have to do that. So I just want to say to senior leads and staff, all of us who are making budgets, future planning, I don't know everything, but there are some things I know, and it's really important that I focus on those things. And really, honestly, just sitting down and making a simple list can be so helpful to me of what I actually do know. So there are some things I know today when I think about our core leadership. Right? Because we're integrated with them. We talk with them. We're interacting with them. We see them every week.
Yeah.
You're talking to them. They're your leadership, right? So there's some things we know about them. And they're in a more stable place than they were 2 years ago, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And they see needs that our church has, right?
Yes.
So we're listening to them. And those needs are based on people that they're working with, prayer requests, right? So we want to listen to them. What do they say are the needs of our church right now? Well, that's important for us. One of those things that I know we have heard them talk about is community. People need community. They want community. It wasn't too long ago. People were still coming to service, right, in person, and then leaving immediately. Now they're lingering. In fact, we haven't, this is simple. We talk about this a lot because it's been one of our budget decisions. Will we serve coffee? We still aren't serving coffee. We used to serve it every week. We haven't served it for 2.5 years. We're now coming to the place where we're going to serve it again. Why?
Well, it creates community. We
It
were
does.
talking about we want people to linger after service, so hang out. And there's just something about, getting a nice cup of coffee to hang out and chat over and linger in our lobby.
There's value there.
There's value there. Yeah.
It's creating community, like you said, a time for people to linger and to have conversation. And what we're finding is, especially when those conversations are happening, say in between services, a lot of times those are around the message or their experience that morning.
Yeah.
And these are good, healthy conversations where people are praying for one another or making plans to have more community outside of that day or later that week. And so we feel that that's a value. And as simple as that sounds, like coffee or no coffee, for some, for a long time for us, it was a no.
It was a hard no. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But then we're like, okay.
And they wouldn't have taken that cup of coffee if I'd handed it to them.
That's
In fact, that's
that
the
is
reason they didn't want that coffee.
Yeah.
You touched it? Ew.
Yeah.
Bottle of hand sanitizer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Another thing that we heard from our people that they wanted was time and worship. It was for a long time we weren't doing nights of worship. We just literally had one because people say, hey, we'd love to come back out. We need that. And we want to linger in that time. Fortunately, that didn't cost us anything, but it was future planning.
Yep.
And so now we're future planning in 2023 to have more of those. And that's really what we're talking about. We're hearing from the core that this is a need. This is what they want. So what is our core saying? What is our overall congregation saying? That crowd of people that come on the weekends that are part of our in-person and on campus, or I should say online campus.
Right.
So they're talking to us. So what are they saying? And we as leaders need to listen. Those are things that we can know, right? So we need to write those down. What are people saying? Another thing on here would be engagement, volunteering. Are people wanting to volunteer now? And that helps us to know that we can start ministries back up.
Yeah, we were talking about men's and women's events earlier.
Yeah.
And how that was a specific piece that we rolled back in at one point after COVID first started.
Yeah.
And we sense this need. We need more engagement through events that we're having.
Yeah.
So we started
Bringing them
back up
back.
with
Yep.
men's and women's Christmas events or even just fall events, different things like that, intentionally for that.
Right.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. And I know other people may be listening to this and thinking, well, we're in a different state, and I can't believe you guys are still talking about that. Well, we're in Citrus Heights, California, Sacramento, California. So we're in the heart of everything weird and ridiculous, trending against churches, and that we're swimming in all of that.
Right.
And so our people have been self-imposed not coming to events for
Right.
the majority of the last 2.5 years.
Oh, yeah.
So why spend money on an event that people aren't going to come to? So that's been a real decision
Right.
we've had. I don't know what decisions everybody else is making, but I'm hoping as we're having this conversation, people can recognize that this is also a process that will help them discern what's really important right now to our congregation, and that we want to plan for in 2023, and that we might need to put some dollars towards as well when we think about budgeting, and then also our staffing. Another resource. What's the next one on the list? This
is giving.
Important. Giving.
This is,
Yeah, giving.
this will dictate what you can and cannot do.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But
It really does.
know, because you can track your giving, so you can know, because we talked about, what do I know right now?
Yeah.
Well, that's something, a metric you can use to say, I know this.
Yeah.
What you can and can't.
It's a real metric.
It is. a real metric,
Absolutely.
yep.
Yeah, and we know 65% of people attending today, 65% of pre-COVID levels. So we know that's every church in America. That's the average. So we know that most churches are dealing with a strong deficit when it comes to who's attending. And then, of course, that's affected budgets. So we know that budgets are constrained everywhere.
Yeah.
And so every decision is a real decision. It's a difficult decision. And a yes for this is a no for that. So when it does come to our giving, simple things. We have been trying to understand, even though we've existed for 13 years, we had a giving pattern before COVID. We've been trying to figure out, since COVID happened, then the pandemic, and now whatever you call this season, which I believe is out of COVID, but still it's the new normal. Well, what is giving now? Because it's been so erratic, up and down, month after month, season or quarter after quarter, that we're still trying to figure out what is our average weekly giving.
Yeah. It's
right?
a moving target.
It's a moving target.
And there are a lot of variables for that, depending on how different organizations receive their revenue through offering. Like, we have online, mail in, you can text to give, you can do all these different ways to give your tithe and offerings. Whereas in the past, a long time ago, there was, there were only maybe one or two ways. You either put it in the plate or you mailed it in.
True.
And so some of those things don't post, so you don't know. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
Because the monies are posting and showing at different times of the week, and you're not, did that come from last week or this week?
Yeah.
So you have to figure out what your system can reveal, and then figure out, okay, what does that look like on an average?
Yeah.
But it does tell you something. You just got to figure out how you're going to measure it.
Right.
How you're going to track it.
Right.
Yeah, and we were talking recently. I love this. I don't know where you'd gotten it from or who you'd heard it from about the feast or famine cycle with normal church giving anyways.
Yeah.
So like this was happening before COVID even.
Right.
We'd have 3 summer months that were always lower
Yeah.
than giving at the other time of the year.
Yep.
So as you're assessing that, that's a great piece to consider to figure out, well, I don't want to necessarily decide what my budget is for next year off of June, July, and August.
No, we definitely do not want to do that.
That's going to
There'd
be
be a whole lot of
problem.
no's.
Starving.
Yeah,
There'd be
lot
a
of
whole
no's.
lot of no's.
No.
We're definitely not having coffee.
Right.
But on the
Definitely
flip
not.
side of that, you're not also figuring your next year's budget when there's a feast.
Yeah, you don't
Right.
do
Because
that
that's
either.
over, right?
That's
like,
over.
And if it was,
Yeah.
So it's like 6 months maybe, or, we're still figuring
3 to
out our
6
norm because
months,
of the campaign we had last
Right.
spring. So
Yeah.
it feels very
Yeah.
wonky, but you just do your best, right?
Yeah,
There's
you
some
do.
good things that I know you do all the time to help you figure it out.
Yeah, and it's the things that we're looking at is really just trying to gauge it. We look at the weekly, but that's not nearly as helpful as a 2-week, not nearly as helpful as a month.
right.
And a month isn't nearly as helpful as 2 months. That really helps you find an average within that. And so it's important that we're continuing to extend out the time stamp that you're looking at to gain that average. And so, right now we're looking at September, October, and now November to try to inform, all right, so when we're budgeting for 23, what number are we actually looking at that we believe we're going to count on for the income being in 23? Because I think 23 is going to be a more stable year. I don't know that to be true, but I'm assuming it. because coming out of in 22, we were just coming off of COVID. Still COVID rampant variants all over the place. It was still so crazy. A lot of that psychology has died down now. People aren't really talking about it nearly like they were. So we're assuming there's going to be some stabilizing with turbulence. That's probably the better way I'd say it. So trying to figure out what that weekly income is going to be, and then plan 2023 with that in mind. So yeah, that's just how we're trying to figure it all out. And so I hope as we're able to talk about this, it's giving some insights for others to be able to do something similar. And then obviously there are things in the bank, and what resources you have in the bank are helping you in a time just like this. This is the earth-shattering season that you put money away for. That's right? To help extend you so you're not having to lay off staff because you had a bad month or maybe even a bad quarter. Right? Because once you let go of that youth pastor or that children's pastor or that associate pastor, you can't just go hire them back. It's not that easy. And you don't want to do that. And so you want to do your best to extend that bridge as far as you can with the resources you have in the bank to get you over that slump. So there's a lot of ways we've been thinking about it, and it's gotten us to here. And honestly, it's been really wonderful. And we haven't had to lay off anybody through COVID, but it's been really challenging. But this is a constant conversation that I know that we're having. So, and you guys have been helping me with it. But all of it helps us to understand what here looks like. What do I know about here? Now, there's other things I don't know, but I do know these things. 2023 is there. That's what I want to get to. That's what I want to get to. And so the planning, the staffing, and the budgeting help us to get there. So when we're talking about what I definitely know, then I look at the potential of what do we want to do in 23, right? What are the needs? What do we really want to accomplish? Now, we've talked about in earlier episodes the game plan, which is this card. We carry this thing around, talk about it constantly.
Yep.
And it's really helpful, has our vision, mission, statement, core values, those kind of things. And those are important, but what's really important for this discussion is found on the back side of the game plan, and it's this question of how will we succeed? It really talks to you about what's most important in the next season, which is typically about a 3-month period. What does success look like in the next season? And so we want to be successful in the next season because we know that sets us up for the season after that. So as we're in fall. We want to be set up now in this season so that when we start 2023, we're going to be in a better position. And we want to be there because we did better future planning, better budgeting, our staffing is strong, and so we're doing all that we can to make sure that that's happening. But I think having that game plan is so critical for this conversation of budgeting.
Right.
Because we know what we want to accomplish now. And so when it comes to a staff person and this whole idea of budgeting, how helpful is it to you that we've already asked this question and gone through and gotten to the clarity of the game plan?
I think very helpful because, we've had to cut budgets.
Right.
And so what it did in my mind was, what can I continue to do, like, for example, with restoration ministries with significantly less dollars than I had before? So it just takes me back to, we're here to help people follow Jesus. And I want to do that well. So it gets creative, means different kind of team meetings. We don't cater food or pay for food. We do a potluck instead, or I make cookies and that's it. And
you make great cookies, so that's not a bad thing. We were just talking about that.
Yeah, I love that. But it's, just thinking a little differently. And I thought it was so awesome when we talked about this with the rest of staff. Their response was just amazing. And I felt like for all of us, there was this almost excitement towards simplicity.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really beautiful about simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you back to what matters the most.
Yep. Yep.
And it takes you back to community.
Right.
Yeah.
And making relationships what matters most, which is also on our game plan.
Yeah.
And it gets you, I think, tapped into what the Holy Spirit wants to do through you.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit does not need you to have a bunch of money to accomplish his purpose through
That's
you.
right.
That's right.
Or you.
Right.
He's gonna do that
He's gonna do it.
without dollars.
Yeah.
That's the gifting he's placed in all of us. So
Acts
that's what
chapter
I
2
love
did
about all
not
this.
cost a dime.
That's right.
3,000
It
people
didn't.
came to faith on that day, and it didn't cost a dime.
That's such a great
But
example.
I'm sure they did pass an offering bucket. I'm positive they did it.
I hope
They
they
always
did.
do at church.
I was going to say, it's not a given. You have to, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
No, that's really good. That's really good. So when we look at what's future planning, uncertainty, budget, staffing, we're realizing that there are some things at risk, and that's why we want to plan well.
Yeah.
Right? We want to make the
Make
most
wise
of the
decisions.
resources that we
Yeah.
have, because there is a lot at risk, and it's people, it's the mission. And so that's why we take this so seriously. It's not something we throw together. It takes weeks and sometimes even months for us to make this happen. So sometimes too, once you've listened to people, and listening is definitely a part of this whole process we're talking about, there's this discernment as a pastor, where we recognize it might not have come up in conversations, or maybe it did, but it wasn't said in the way that we understand it as a pastor from a spiritual perspective. It's that discernment that our people need something. They may not even tap into it or voice it, but we recognize that that's something they need. And so I think that's something you have to pay attention to as well.
Yeah.
And one thing that comes to mind would be our men's events. That's not something there was a huge outcry for, but when we called for it, the men started resonating with it.
Yeah.
If you would have asked the men, hey, do you want to meet more?
They'd be like, nah, I'm good.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
But when you cast a vision for it and you pull them into it with that inspiration, then they recognize, you know what, I do need that.
And they would say that at those events.
They would. They
Oh,
did.
man, I needed this tonight.
Needed
I
it.
needed to
Yeah,
connect.
yeah. They would even say, I didn't actually even want to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that
Oh, yeah.
they're able to tell me that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm so glad that I did.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's that future planning piece. And yeah, it's a budgeting issue.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. So when you take all this information, you got to boil it down, and then you apply the Pareto principle.
Yes.
The Pareto principle.
So
That's
good.
something we use all the time around here, which Pareto was an Italian economist who gave us this beautiful principle, which simply means when he studied all these different things, he realized that 20% of your list, whatever your list is that needs to get done or that you have to, that costs you, 20% of that list yields you an 80% of return. It yields you an 80% of production, 20% of your energy, your resources actually yield you the 80% of the return you're looking for. And the bottom 80% of your list yields you a 20% return. But we would rather do the bottom 80 because they're the easy things. The hard things are the 20%, or the things that are more difficult. They take longer in order to do. But that's the Pareto principle, and we learned from that this is where we want our dollars to go. This is the future planning we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did we figure out the 20%
Yeah.
here?
Discernment. I mean, we throw it all up on the wall, and you just start saying, is this really what's most important? In fact, one thing that I can think of right now, we just made a decision that when COVID happened, literally the first week, we said we've got to start providing daily devos for our people.
Yeah.
Right? We put that out.
did.
We've been doing that up until right now, which is mid-November. And we just made the decision, announced it, that we're going to stop doing those. And the reason is because when it comes to the time and the effort that goes into producing them, it doesn't really give us the return back on the hours that it takes to actually produce it. And so we realize it's a better use of our time. I'm not saying it isn't worth our time. It is.
Right.
But the amount of people that are watching them now, it went from literally hundreds to now it's under 100. And so we're saying, well, hey, we're providing that connection with people now in ways that we couldn't a year ago. So that's why now's the time. We're just going to go ahead and stop it and then gain those hours back, which is like 8 to 12 hours a month of time. We're going to gain that back. And for Jennifer Alessio, our children's pastor, and she can use that time for other things with children's ministry. And so she needs that.
Yep.
So that was a smart decision. Pareto helped us to get to that spot.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you guys think of anything else on that?
Well, I think about like getting to the Pareto is actually kind of a culmination of listening and discerning. I mean, that's part of all that process.
Yeah.
At the same time, we also look at, like, for instance, we talked about that earlier about the community, the lingering on. Those were some of the things we valued.
Yeah.
And that might be different for somebody like another organization. That might not be a thing for you.
Right.
But for us, those were some deciding factors that, hey, we have, if we do this thing, this 20% thing, I think of like the remodeling of our lobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about the quad, our whole outside. We created space for people. I mean, we realized that people wanted to be together.
Yeah.
And so that was an 80% yield thing that we were like, this is good.
Right.
So we're gonna invest in that.
Yeah.
For some people might say, well, that's silly. But in our situation, that's why this is so great, because this is for individual organizations. For you, your list is gonna be different, and how you discern and how you get there is gonna be different.
Yeah.
But for us, that was a huge value in that, having community. I think about our online campus. I think about those things that we thought these are things that are right now in this season.
Yep.
We want to invest in, and we've already seen that producing results.
Yeah. That's true.
The lobby hasn't even been done that long.
It's only weeks. But it's producing results.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people are lingering and having those conversations. Yeah, it is really, really.
So that was part of okay, this is that wasn't a small thing.
No.
It was a huge undertaking.
It's a huge undertaking.
But in the big scope of things, it fit in that 20%. It's going to yield us 80%.
Yeah. And let's be clear, the dollars that we spend on those things were painful. Okay. We could have used them for other things.
Right.
But we knew this would produce what was most important for us as a church at this time. And I like what you said. For other churches, you may have a different need, but you have a need.
Yes.
You have a Pareto. There is a 20% for you, and you need to know what that is. But that's not something you're going to figure out on your own if you're a lead pastor. I mean, you've got a good idea, but you need to hear from other people too.
Right.
Staff doesn't always know. Very often we're, really focused and we don't see the whole of the church.
Right.
And so I really appreciate Jennifer Alessio, our children's pastor, because she gave up some dollars for her children's renovation, but we needed it for the rest of the campus. And so we've done some things for her, but we weren't able to do all of what we were hoping to do. And so, but she knew that because she's got the bigger picture in mind. And she understood Pareto. And so it helped us to get there.
Yeah.
So now she's not mad at me. She's applauding a difficult decision that we all did together. Yeah. I love that we were able to arrive at that. Okay, so a couple last minute questions here that just take a couple of minutes and finish these out. How do you express faith in a budget? Because this is, as a faith leader, I think really important for all of us. And I want faith to be expressed in a budget. Pastor Jen, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of doing your due diligence and doing all the number crunching, everything we've just talked about, figuring out your income, figuring out your expenses, and getting them as close together as possible.
Yeah.
And then really, I think you have to lean in and hear God's voice. If you feel like you need to exercise some faith and not cut anybody for 6 months and see where you are then I believe that's what you should do. And sometimes it is a step of faith, because what ministry ever has enough dollars, right? You always feel like you don't have as much as you would like to have,
Right.
to do as much as you would like to do, or to do it this way, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's always that step of faith of, okay, God, I know you believe in this work here. I know this is yours. You're going to provide for it. It may not always look like dollars, but you're going to provide for it another way. Like our office carpet.
Yes.
We just found out
Yeah.
that
So
we're going to
true.
get just this amazing, miraculous donation and super low price
Yeah.
for us
Yeah.
to do.
Actually, it's
the
free.
Office.
It's completely paid for now.
What?
That person said, we're just going to pay all of it.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that just
great.
happened last
But
night.
that's an example of, we could not make that decision because there was something over here that we knew was going to be more bang for our buck.
Yep.
Just to put it bluntly.
Yep. So we said no to carpet for us in the office.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've been staring at that same nasty green carpet for
It's
13
40-something
years now.
It's very
Well,
old.
since I've been
carpet.
here, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Unattractive.
It just happens like
Yes,
that
it is.
sometimes.
I'm sure it was
But
beautiful
that's-
when it was put down first.
I mean, that's an example of God providing in a different
Yep.
way
Yeah, for sure.
than with money.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. I think another way when I think about faith in budgeting is we're putting our faith in leaders.
Yes.
Now, this is important for me to say because I have heard from numbers of people specifically that deal with numbers, and when they talk to us as pastors, and I understand what they're saying, and it's a good thing, but there's this whole science to the percentages that a church budget should have when it comes to what's your percentage of ministry dollars versus dollars going towards staffing.
Right.
And we exceed the staffing. We exceed the staffing dollars, and we have for 13 years as a church. And I would say, and I always do say, this is what I say to our people, specifically the people who do loans for us, who say, your budgets are a little out of whack. And I said, no, they're exactly where they need to be, because my dollars are always better spent on a leader than a larger budget. Bottom line is, children's ministry needs a leader who loves those kids, who is exceptional, than a larger ministry budget for children led by volunteers.
Right.
That leader is always going to give you a greater return. I would bank on that leader, put my faith in that leader, the right leader, not a passionless leader, but the right leader. That person's always going to produce more, bring a greater impact to the overall mission.
Yeah, because they're
That's
going to
it.
be an equipping pastor.
That's right. They're going to be
Which
an
is
equipping pastor.
what you've hired us all to be.
That's right.
That's right.
You don't want us to do it.
That's right.
You
That's
want
right.
us to get people on our team that will do the ministry.
That's right. That's
So you
right.
hire that caliber of a person,
That's who we do it. Yes.
and they're going to get people filled in. They're going to get the right team. They're going to
right.
be able to handle all the organization, administrative part of it.
Right.
But they're also going to have the heart. I mean, that's all stuff that you can't create.
Yeah.
You want to find that in the person and bring them on. I mean, it's so true. I've been doing
Yeah.
this since the beginning. I
Yeah.
remember when it was just you and me and
Yeah.
Pastor John, and we had to hire a youth pastor that first summer.
Yeah.
And
Which we couldn't afford.
We could not afford. And you were like, we got to do this.
Yeah, it's the only way.
This is the
Yeah.
guy.
It's the only way it's going to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
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 But
so
we were
knew
banking
that.
on the future.
Right.
That's right.
what we were
It was
doing.
an investment that we knew was going to be a return
We
because
knew
of
it.
the quality of person it was.
That's right. That's right.
And
they
we've
did.
done that over and over. And that's
Yep.
why we do have such a quality, awesome team.
Yeah.
I mean, each one of them, they're just rock stars.
Yeah.
Their heart's in the right place. They have such a passion for what they're
good.
doing here.
But when we hire people not to do the work of 20, but to put 20 into
That's right.
ministry.
Right.
And that's why it works. That's why it works.
It does.
That's right.
I mean,
We're
was we-
equipping our people to do the work of ministry, as Ephesians 4:11 and 12
Yeah,
says.
because we also have less staff than a church our size would
Right.
have.
We do.
But that's another reason why we
That's
can
right.
do it.
That's right. We have 45 to 50% of our people are serving in ministry rather than the average, which is 20%.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's been as high as 50% or 55% pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
We're going to get back to those numbers. That's good. Okay, a couple more things here. Let's talk about how far out will you budget and plan. And our answer is basically right now, we're planning for 1 year. We have a year of events planned.
Right.
But we're only really going, and we're going to budget for a year, but we're really only going to be watching that budget for about 3 months. And then we're going to make adjustments.
Right. Just like you said, keeping your finger on the pulse.
There you go.
Because sometimes people will just make their budget and then they're like, okay, we'll see you next November when we're planning 2024.
Right.
But I think in this day and age with the uncertainty of, because there's that word uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Yeah, because certainty is a myth.
That's right.
You just never know. So it would behoove you to keep your fingers on the pulse of your budget and of your giving. Yeah. And so that at 3 months, you can say, hey, we're going to need to make a shift, because that shift could save someone's job.
Right. Because we want the leader.
Because we want the leader.
Right.
Because you can put dollars into a program, but people are attracted to leaders.
Right.
And they're going to get discipled by leaders and have community and relationship with leaders, not a program.
That's right.
And so therefore it's like, because you may make an adjustment. And at that 3-6 month period, you may say, hey, we're doing great. And keep going. Or you may need to make adjustments.
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll loosen the belt. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. You get to go either way with it.
Right.
But yeah, it's leaders. People are attracted to leaders, not large children's ministry budgets. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Right. So, Craig, what is one of the hardest things for you as a lead pastor?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think what's important for staffs to know and understand, when you go through a season like this, it is very difficult for senior leads to tell their staff no. We don't want to say no. We want to say yes. But the reality is we're going to be saying no way more than we're saying yes. And that was true before COVID. It's more true now. But I think that's why the game plan's so important to us, because we came up with that together. So we all already agreed these really are the most important things.
Yeah.
So we're able to get to agreement quicker, and we understand the no's and we understand the yeses, I think with a much greater clarity. So I think that's really honestly it. And I know I've joked before, I'm the chief. Oh gosh, I forgot the title right away, but I'm disappointment officer. That's it. No. Chief disappointment officer. I'll tell people no all day long. And it's really hard. It really does weigh on you.
For sure.
But when we have all of this game plan together and we've gotten the clarity, and I've been listening and we've been in these conversations together, and I'm doing this all by myself, oh man, it's so much better. It's so much better. And you guys make it easy. You guys are really easy on me.
I think too is like a lot of those no's can be for big things, but a lot of those no's, what they add up to, I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but I feel like a lot of those no's add up to some big yeses that are going to pay off that 80% in the program.
Yeah,
so you have to say no to some things.
That's true. Yeah.
Because the things that are on our game plan are the big yeses.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the no's are necessary.
It's good.
It allows us to have the big yes.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you for this real conversation in real time about what's happening right here at Heights Church about leading people, organization, and change. So, in wrapping up, we want to remind you that certainty is a myth. But hey, we can know what we do know. So let's get to that. Let's make a list. Let's figure it out. And then what I know is that God has gifted you with the ability to make these decisions. So be a help as a lead pastor to your staff, and staff be a help to your lead pastors. And together, hopefully, you're able to get to a really successful 2023 with staffing and budgeting and future planning. All right, guys, until next time, we'll see you soon.